you be my Valentine?
I will be your Valentine. Thank you. Hello and happy Valentine's Day. This week's video is a really special one because we have a special guest, my husband Jeremiah. So Jeremiah is also a huge reader, so for Valentine's Day, what we do traditionally is we'll go to a bookstore and each of us will pick out a book for the other person. We'll buy the book, then go write a little note in it to each other and then give it to each other. So this year for our Valentine's Day date, we both filmed our shopping process to take you along with us. So without further ado, let's get into it. Jeremiah can explain where we are and what we're doing.
We're in an unnamed outdoor mall in Glendale, California. And we're gonna go to the Barnes & Noble and pick out little books for one another.
Because what day is it?
It's Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day. And we will pick out books for each other, write little notes to each other of why we picked them for each other, meet up.
Will you be my Valentine?
I will be your Valentine. Thank you. All right, see you on the other side. So a couple weeks ago, I told Jeremiah the book that I wanted for Valentine's Day, which was The Will of the Many by James Islington. So let's see if he remembers that little subtle plan. So his favorite genre is horror. And he's been talking about wanting like an epic sprawling horror, so I'm trying to find one. Behind me.
Whoa. I didn't have the one I wanted for.
Heck.
I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
The Will of the Many.
I said that's what I wanted.
They don't have it.
Dang.
I know.
Well.
I know you. You know what you like. So,
Okay, go pivot. Alright, this is what we're going with. This I've never heard of this before, but he has it marked as want to read on Goodreads. It looks like a mixture of horror and fantasy, very sprawling, so I think this is a good one. Well, well, well. Look who's here in the checkout. Don't look at me. Okay, so I got the book. Now I'm gonna write a little note in it of why I picked it for him.
First,
Sure.
take it.
There you go. Oh!
Read your little note.
Sorry, I was like, what is this?
It'll explain.
World's greatest fantasy classic. Thank you. That's so exciting. I couldn't remember what this was at first.
Yeah, it's the King Arthur book.
Yeah, because I haven't read any King Arthur books. Thanks, hon. That's a nice note, too. You're welcome. Okay,
Treats.
you ready?
Yeah, it looks big.
Yeah, it is.
Ooh, Clive. I haven't read any Clive Barker yet.
You've heard, okay, because I saw that you added it to your Goodreads. I'd never heard of this. I also saw it was blurbed by Quentin Tarantino, which I thought was apt for a film boy.
Can you read your little note?
Okay.
Yeah, no, Clive Barker I've been wanting to read some of.
Yeah, it's illustrated by the author.
Dude, he's wild.
Like, it looks, I'm scared just looking at it.
This is the guy that wrote, directed Hellraiser.
What?
He wrote the short story of Hellraiser, directed Hellraiser. He also wrote Candyman, the original book that it's based off of.
Really?
He's like a
Have I never heard of this guy?
icon who writes really weird stuff.
Yeah, it looks scary.
I've never read any of his.
Well, now you have an excuse to.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, it sounded, yeah, cause I googled epic horror novels and it was like the best horror books of all time. And I'm like, no, not that kind of epic. I'm talking like sprawling, big, which sounded like that. And then they said it's time to leave the store. And I was like, well,
I'm excited. I've been wanting to read some Bible.
now you can.
Let's go eat.
All right. So romantic. Yes, we are super, super romantic and spent our Valentine's Day at a Buffalo Wild Wings. But hear me out. Bar food is great. So joke's on you guys because there was no wait. It was great. So Jeremiah talked a little bit about the book that I got him, but I was so caught up in the moment, I didn't say anything about the book that he got for me. So Jeremiah got me The Once and Future King by T.H. White. As you can see in my reaction in the video, at first I was like, what is this? The cover is cool, but what is this? Jeremiah is like, he's the person who introduced me to the fantasy genre and like has taught me about it and has kind of this like core competency literacy in the fantasy classics. And I don't have that. Like I explained, like that was kind of an impetus in starting this channel, was to be more aware of the fantasy genre, the fantasy classics. So The Once and Future King is like the King Arthur story. It is like the first major King Arthur Knights of the Round Table story. Seeing that the 3 books that make up this novel were written in the 1930s, I can't really grasp my own synopsis of it very well without reading it, so I will read you a little bit from the inside blurb. How about that? Whoso pulleth out this sword of this stone and anvil is rightwise king born of all of England. Once upon a time, a young boy called Wart was tutored by a magician named Merlin in preparation for a future he couldn't possibly imagine. A future in which he would ally himself with the greatest knights, love a legendary queen, and unite a country dedicated to chivalrous values. A future that would see him crowned and known for all time as King Arthur, King of the Britons. It goes on to talk about how Arthur goes on quests with knights. There's treachery, a forbidden love between Queen Guinevere and Lancelot, sinister, wicked plots, all sorts of just very tropey, like, classic fantasy moments. So, I am very excited to get to this. This was a very sweet pick from Jeremiah, I'll add. The note that he wrote in here was so sweet because I originally started my Bookstagram and like my book content creation right after Valentine's Day last year. So, and he's been along the ride with me and seeing me like find my voice and what I'm like passionate about and reading and creating book content about. And he knows that I want to kind of embark on this like reading the classics and getting a better sense for the fantasy genre. So he got this to support me in that, and it was a very sweet little note that made me tear up a little bit. But yes, so this is what Jeremiah picked for me, and I will probably be reading this one later this year because it sounds quite dense and literary, and right now I'm feeling a little slumpy. so we're looking for something a little faster than the 1930s Knights of the Round Table, but I am so just delighted that this was his pick for me. So the book that I picked for Jeremiah was Weaveworld by Clive Barker, and he must have taken it off to work with him or put it somewhere because I can't find it. So I'll just get to talk to you a little bit about it. As I mentioned, Jeremiah is a huge horror fan. He is a horror writer, so he is really in touch with that genre. And Weaveworld is a weird combination of horror and fantasy. It's following a world that is woven into a carpet. If I were to describe a Jeremiah book as succinctly as possible, it's just weird as heck, like scary and weird as heck. And I got scared even just looking at this book, and I have no idea what it's about very much, but it sounds so him, not at all anything that I would ever be inclined to read, but it just made me think of him. And then it turns out that it was also written by someone who made a bunch of notorious horror movies that I don't know who writes movies very well. So it seemed like it was a good hit for him. So that's all I can ask for. All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's little special video. Short and sweet little video for you guys of our little Valentine's Day date night. I encourage any of you guys who have readers for boyfriends or husbands or partners to take them book shopping and to write each other little notes of why you picked books for each other. It's really sweet. I have a collection of holiday books with notes from my husband, which always make me smile. So I encourage you to do that. Let me know if you want Jeremiah to be in more videos. He might not be too receptive to it, but he loves me. With that, thanks again for joining us. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you soon for another video. Bye.